Hey, and welcome to David Joshua Ford Live. This is episode 98, and on today's show, we're taking a look at Companion version 3.5.2. We're going to take a look at what is new and also some of the things that are coming ahead. If you haven't been updated to 3.4, we'll take a look at that. 3.5 is the current one, and then the beta version 4, some of the cool things that we have to look ahead to that. Really nice to be back in the studio with you. I've been away for the last 2 weeks, hence why there weren't any live streams. I had a wedding in Australia to go to, and also was able to just, take some time at the beaches, and really enjoyed the Australian landscape, can't beat it, and just catching up with family, and also catching up with some YouTubers, catching with Ryan there, so it might be a familiar face, until we got absolutely downpoured on in Sydney, so I had wet shoes for like 3 days, but it's just some beautiful, beautiful scenery in Australia before having to come back to New York, which is cold, but good to be back with the family. If it is your first time here on the channel, we talk about live streaming and photography and video production. So if you have any questions about that, then let me know, drop your chat and say hi, let me know where you're from. But today's show, we're gonna start talking a bit more about Companion and just some of the new features that are in place. So let's kick off and take a look at version 3.4. And if you missed that, because that's been around for a little while, and there's a logic in feedbacks that we can use now. So if I jump over to Companion here, down in this What's New tab, this is gonna be the way to sort of keep tabs, I guess, on what's new. And that's really nice because before that tab actually came in, it was sort of just keeping an eye on GitHub and trying to see what had been implemented. And also, that sort of stuff is in GitHub, but it's just nice having this in the app, and at a glance, they've done a great job of laying it out with some sort of visual feedback. So the first one that we have is the button grid view scale. So we can take a look at that one here, which is just a new part of the menu that's been added to the GUI. So under this spotlight here, you can zoom in and zoom out. So that helps if you have really big profiles like this one, or you can zoom out and you want to see the whole thing. So I've got a profile now that's big enough to hold the width of a Stream Deck Studio, or 4 Stream Deck XLs laid out in a grid. So that's why that's so big. And also if you zoom all the way in and you get lost somewhere, you can just scale to 100% and you can hit this home button here, and then that will take you back to your 0, button, which is this one here. So just a nice way to navigate and faster to get around with that. The next one is logic in feedback. So if we jump across to what's new again, over here, logic in feedbacks. I was showing this in last week's, the last episode, I know it was like 2 weeks ago now, in Companion Buddy, which I've been using as a sort of warning light in my studio to know if anything is amiss. So you can see up here, I've got this little tally light here, and if that's solid, then I'm on air and it's all good. And if this is flashing, then it means something is wrong. And I build that one by, I jump over to my super source here. Let's come into page 99. And I'm gonna click, this is my buddy light, which is making that, the button light up on top of the teleprompter that you just saw there. And we can go into feedbacks here. So I've got a variable here just to show if the buddy is in an on state. If that variable is on, then it's gonna be red. But then I'm using this new feedback in here, which is internal logic. And there's 3 versions of them. If I come down here and you type in logic, you can do an and or an or an and or conditional logic there. So the one that I've got in place here is I'm using this sort of blink when variable matches value. So I'm saying if my YouTube stream health is not good, this is a not equals, then it's going to flash. Or if my ATEM is not recording, or if my web presenter is not streaming, or if the YouTube module that I have in here says that I'm not live, then it's gonna flash yellow, and then remember the background color was red, so it's gonna be yellow, red, And so if I was to change one of those things, so I'm live at the moment, and so this not equals operation is not triggering anything, but it has to match that variable. So if I was to delete one button here, you'll see that now it's flashing. And now if I cut over to my companion buddy, this is what it's like when I'm sitting here and my attention's at the teleprompter, and very clearly in my line of sight, this light is flashing, and so that would alert me to the fact that something is wrong. And if I just correct this variable here, you'll see it's gone solid red. The color looks a little funny on screen there, but it is actually a very solid red to my eyes, which I'm looking at here. So that's just a neat way of implementing feedback that is going to match certain conditions and just give you a lot more flexibility in doing things like tally lights or whatever else you can come up with on that. The other changes that we have in version 3.4 are, if we come on down here, 3.4, scroll down to those feedbacks. We have expanding expressions, so now there's more space to write out your expressions there, and then there's a ton more things going in here. I'll just leave this up as a, you can pause here and scan through and see if any of these are interesting to you. I mean, even the first one, just being able to set an installation name and user config. So I use that here. You can see I have my Mac Mini, which is my main server here. And so I'm able to, under the settings, this is the installation name. I can call it Mini and my version that I'm doing internally. And that also it puts Mini up here in this tab. And that is just a nice way of keeping tabs on installations, because, for example, and we'll get to this later in this episode, I'm also running a beta here on a different computer, on my local computer actually, 127.0.0.1, and you can see under the settings I've been able to change this name to beta, so I can very clearly sort of make sure I'm not making changes on the wrong installation, which if you're making multiple versions, then that can certainly have that effect. All right, let's jump over to Companion version 3.5, which is the latest stable version, because there's things like unlimited pages and a new way of handling delays. It's actually up to version 3.5.2 as of the time of this broadcast. So it's been out for about 2 weeks and there's been some bug fixes in that time, but that's what we're looking for. So let's jump back over to 3.5, end of support for Mac OS 10.15 is one of them. But the main one here we have is that the action delays have been removed and they've been replaced with a new internal wait action. So that is sort of a fairly significant change. So now if I scroll down, let's see if I have any. So you can see here, for example, let me jump over to my super source. So rather than, if you're familiar with Companion, what used to be was each action had a little box here and you could type in the milliseconds that you want to delay that action for. And also at the top here, you could choose whether you wanted Companion to operate these actions sequentially, like one runs and the next one, and the next one, so on, or if you just want them all to start at the same time and whatever delays they have on their individual actions would take effect that way. So now by default, that one's gone and we just have this internal wait action. But the good thing about it is that you can actually use variables now within there. So you can set a certain number of milliseconds to a variable and have that updated. So the way that, so in here, for example, instead of 1 millisecond, you could actually type in a dollars variable, and whatever your custom variable is, I know I've got one called ATEM or something. So actually it's called custom ATEM like that is, and so now I have 3 ATEMs, they're called 1, 2, 3. So this would be the number 1, 2, 3, depending on what's selected. And so you could see the millisecond delay here would be either 1, 2, or 3 seconds of delay. I'm just going to set this back to 1. because I just wanted to give you a bit of a demo of like how I could see this being used, particularly with the variables. So one of the ways in which I use it is with PTZ cameras and sort of building in a program cut function into the preset recalls. So if we go over to my page 77, you can see, I'll just narrow this down to 2. You know, there's a couple more, but just to keep things simple, when I reposition the camera, I got a close up, or I can go to a mid or a close up here, and you can see it cut straight away because it's on a delayed, because it's on the time, the drive time. But if I was to select the reposition, then it's going to reposition the camera very quickly, and it's not going to cut right away. So let's go back to, so you'll see this because this box is on air. So go to mid shot, so you can see it's done that reposition, and then it's going to cut. And so that's a way in which you could use a variable. So in this instance, it is saying, I'm just going to switch modes here. I want to be on preview. So if my PTZ camera, or there's other ways of doing this, but if my PTZ camera is on the normal reposition mode, which is basically just get there as fast and as ugly as you can, then I want to delay 2 seconds. So put in 2000 milliseconds, and that would be the variable that you have as a wait time before you have something like an ATEM cutting to that camera. Otherwise, if you have something like the time mode or speed mode selected, then you could change that variable to be 0, and I want to cut straight away. So there's just ways of which you can sort of build that into the one action without having to sort of make it too complicated or layer it up. So hopefully that makes sense. There's also a new internal action, which is sort of a group, which will either have inherit, concurrent, or sequential. So let's go back to page 3 over here. Scroll up to here. And because I've got a few buttons here that I'm just messing around with. So if I type in wait, that was the wait one. Sorry, I think it was group. Yeah, action group. And so this is where you can put actions into a group, and then you can choose an execution mode in terms of inheriting the properties, or else like we had in the old way of making those either sort of concurrent actions, which all happen at once, or else sequential, where they go one after the other. And from what I've read too, some modules in Companion now can actually give feedback on whether or not they've executed that action. And so when you're going sequentially, you don't need to worry so much about building in additional wait times to allow actions to run. Apparently not all of this has that yet, but that's sort of the direction Companion's going, is that modules will get better at giving feedback to say, I've run that action. And so you can just lay out actions without having to put in a wait time, because then it will just, Companion will sequentially manage that. That's getting a bit wordy, isn't it? All right, probably one of the biggest changes in 3.5 is that we now have unlimited pages, which, similar to a couple of versions back, we had an unlimited canvas, but we only had 99 pages. So now we can have unlimited pages, and also by default, if you have a new profile, there's actually no pages in there, so you're not gonna have 99 pages, you gotta add them in. So let's take a look at that. You'll see under the buttons tab here, there's this new tab called Pages. So this is a really nice way to get a bird's eye view of what's going on in your configuration. So, I've got my first 15 pages are sort of home shot, scene, home shot, scene, show, queue, and then I've got sort of pages 2 and 3 of that for additional surfaces. And then I've got a whole bunch of things for ATEM 1, ATEM 2, ATEM 3, VLC, all that kind of stuff. So all the way up to 99, but now I can just add in a new page. We can call it new page, like that. Add one page, and now we have 100 pages. So that's cool, because it means you don't have to manage your profile so much. Like was literally filling out 100 pages, as you can see with all that stuff. And so now you can just sort of keep adding pages as you need them. I'm not aware of any sort of performance issues alongside that, but the other thing to know is that you can actually rearrange and insert pages. I'm not going to do this too much in here, but if we want to take a look at, something that's not going to be too messy. So my clock page, I could drag that, and you see now the clock page has become 95, and my deck page has become 96. And if I drag it back, then they've been moved around. So it's a really nice way of moving pages around. One of the problems with that is that you actually have to manually update the actions. So you can't, so there's no like page ID or something in the background that is remembering what you jump to. So if you have a button, like I have this button here, I'll show you what I'm doing. This button here, and I'm saying set current surface to, this is the set surface to page. It's working off an actual number, not a page name or some sort of page ID. And so you can see if I scroll down, it's actually going to be, what do we have? We had deck 1 and clock, so 95, 96. And so if you have menu layouts that are jumping to specific numbered pages, and then you rearrange your pages, your menu is going to jump to that page which may be blank. So just keep that in mind, is that the structure is still based on page numbers, and you're going to have to manually track what is going on there. But we'll say it is, if you are just sort of building something out, it is so much easier to be able to drag these pages around. Previously, you had to go, this button here, like export the whole page and then re-import the page onto a new one, and it was just quite a laborious process. So you can now do that much more easily. Let's take a look at the other changes that we have in 3.5. So if we jump over to what's new here, and I'll skim through this again, more pages and page management. So there's improved database resiliency. There's also cleaner custom variables. So previously it was internal semicolon custom underscore and then whatever the variable was, in this case, test. And so now that whole internal section has been removed, and custom is going to be the prefix, and we just go semicolon test. So it's just a bit cleaner. From what it says, the old names are still functional, but they're going to be updated at some point. So I don't know if that breaks it down the line. Again, I'll just leave this up here as a, you can pause and take a look at the new improvements going on here. In this update, there was a lot of surfaces added. So things like Stream Deck Studio and or maybe that was the last one, like pedals and that kind of stuff. Yeah, the VEC foot pedal. And yeah, take a read through, see what is interesting to you, and we can continue on. All right, next up, let's take a look at Companion Beta 4 and some of the things it brings, particularly like individual module management is going to be the big one that is coming. So if you're not familiar with Companion, there's a stable version, which is the recommended one that you run in production, but there's always betas that are coming out. There's probably like 2 of them a day that are made that you can, the new features that are coming in there, and you can test things out. And for a long time, betas were kind of what I would actually sort of run on like version 2 of Companion, because there's a lot of stuff coming in that I wanted to put in there, and it was pretty stable. So nowadays, I would say run the stable version of Companion and play around with the betas if you want. But we can take a look at what is new in here. One is the updated GUI changes. That's probably the most obvious one, which is tabs have moved to the sidebar. So let's jump back over to my computer here. And again, remember we had our tab name mini, and we can jump over to the tab beta. So it's easy to keep track of this stuff. similar but different, right? So we've still got the red bar on the top and the gray one down the side, but all of the tabs that used to be along here have moved across to the left side, and that is now where we are sort of managing connections and the buttons and all of the surfaces and triggers, variables, losing them there. Modules, settings. In the settings is broken up into general, buttons, and surfaces. So it'll all be very familiar there, but it's just, you know, in different panels. Import, export, the log, and interactive buttons, which I actually haven't played with yet. So where are we? Emulator. Oh no, I have played with that actually. Emulators are hidden all the way in the back there. So connections. So it's more of a graphical change. It's, you know, it's pretty much the same functionality there. But the big one is going to be individual module management. So now Companion is actually not going to ship with any modules in it. It's something you would download. So bear that in mind if you're going on a long haul flight to Australia and you've downloaded the beta to play around with offline, and then you realize that you don't actually have any ATEM modules or PTZ modules available because you have to download them. But there is a reason for that, which is now under here we have modules, and you can see here there's 574 modules that are ignored, and so Companion is no longer shipping with pre-installed modules. You have to download them for yourself. Modules are sort of downloaded and managed individually. And so these are the ones that I have in here. It is pretty easy to, like, if you come into connections and you've got connections that you've imported in, let me jump over here. There'll be a notification here telling you to, you know, sort of mass download everything to the latest version. So what it looks like now is under surfaces, you have your label, and then you have your module version. If you've played around with buttons at all, this is kind of similar to what is in buttons already. And you have the version of the module that you can use. So, you know, you've got your version of Companion, and then you've got different module versions. And that is a really big step forward, because it means that if there is a change, and what we were saying before about having to wait for changes in betas a long time to get into the stable version, now you can just implement those changes on a module basis rather than having to upgrade the whole Companion platform. So it's gonna be able to bring new features to something without having to change other equipment that might be fully functional, or maybe you want to run on a previous version because something broke in a later version. So this is what I've downloaded ahead of time. So the latest stable ATEM is 3.16.1. If you come over to modules and click on ATEM, this is where you'll actually see all of the ones available up to 2 years ago. And you can quite simply click the plus sign, and voila, I have downloaded that version of the ATEM. And so when I come back to my connections, click on ATEM, I can now choose the ATEM that I want to work with. I'm going to stick with the latest one. You can only edit this when it's off. So once I've turned on the ATEM, if you're wondering like why you can't change this, it's because you've selected that module version. You need to turn off the module, and then you can change the module version. And there's also the update policy, which by default is on manual. You probably want to leave it on that just so that you're aware of changes and nothing sort of breaks. But if you're just like riding bareback and you just want to jump on that horse and go for it, then you could just click on stable and it will be sort of updated to the latest stable one. Or if you're really in, you know, experimental development mode, you could go stable and beta, and that will download the betas as well automatically in the background. So that's how the modules are downloaded and managed. The next one is that modules have a logic if action. So, sorry, there's a, what was I saying? There is a sorry, actions have a logic if action. Okay, buttons, that's what I'm saying. Let's jump over and we'll take a look. So if I go to my buttons page and I just want to create a button somewhere. Actually, I don't have anything Stream.Deck connected to this, so we'll just go here. We'll create a button, and now if we type in logic, you can have an if statement, which is going to be so much better in implementing things. So remember before we were talking about with the feedbacks, we could have logic statements of if or and. So now we can, that's just like the feedback state, but it's not actually making actions. So in this instance, we can have this structure. So we're saying when true, then do this action, or else do this other action. And so one of the ways in which that could be used is, let me see if I've got my, okay, so previously to build something even basic like, where did my page go? I've got, oh, I'm not used to 100 pages. There we go, my buddies. Remember my buddies? And we have, actually I can go to, I think I have some here. Close up. Gotta bring this one in. So I have a companion buddy here, and I can turn this one on or off. I think it was buddy 3. So yeah, there's blue, like that. So this is happening by just turning a variable on or off. And previously that would have been sort of a 3-step process. So let's go to, where did I go? My super source, so you can see what's happening. Get my buddy in here so you can just keep an eye on him. So we've got buddy 3, and it would be something like this. I'd turn on like a rotary action here, and so this now has rotaries left or right, and I would have this set current step if variable meets condition, and I'm saying my custom variable buddy 3 over here is either on or off. So under variables, if I typed in buddy, you can see I've got 3 buddies because I've got 3 of these companion buddies, and they're either on or off. Buddy 2 is off at the moment. And so I'm saying here, if it's off, go to step 2, and if it's on, go to step 3. And then I'm saying, wait a millisecond, and then rotate the button right, and then wait another millisecond, and then rotate and return this to step 1. And then, so what was happening here was basically step 2 was saying, turn it on, or step 3 was saying, turn it off. And so that was like, basically like a toggle button, which was, you know, it was just, there's a lot of steps to make that. And then in here, you can have your sort of feedback for whether that's on or off. And I just chose this one to be the color blue. So now instead, I don't have this connected, but I could just do this on, where are we? Over here in our logic if statement. Do I have buddy in here? I don't have buddy. Sorry, this is just the structure. So I need to add in if variable, check the value. If the buddy, I don't have a buddy, let's just go atem again, because I know I have an atem. If it equals 1, then set raw value of atem to 0. And then you could duplicate, where are we? I do find this a little confusing to look at because there's different layers to this, and I feel like this visual structure here could be a little easier to pass, but I think it's this one. Okay, so I'm just duplicating the whole thing now. And I'm just saying if it equals 0, make it 1. And then I could, on the, you know, on the feedback here, I could go $atem, this one will be 1. I think I can do in this profile. I don't want to like, okay, I'm just going to leave that because I've got other atems connected to this. But you get the idea of rather than having to set up multiple steps, you could just use this in sort of one pane, and you could get lots of complicated things out of this and get a lot of functionality. It's also nice having this else button in here to do something else. What else have we got? All right, before we wrap up, let's take a little bonus section and we can just take a look at things that I would like to see, which is where am I? Surface, yes, here we go. All right, so the first one I want to see is surface segmentation, which will be basically adapting Stream Deck XL profiles for the Stream Deck Pro. So let me explain what I mean here. So if you look at this desk, I've designed a lot of, and I would imagine a lot of people too would have a lot of profiles built around a 32 button layout, which is, 8x4. And you've got all these Stream Decks, and then you get a Stream Deck Pro, Studio. Where am I? Here we are, it's not connected in. Stream Deck Studio, which is 16x2. And the challenge here is that I want to adapt this profile that I've spent a huge amount of time on to this larger panel without having to manually reconfigure it, because I also want to keep using it for the Stream Decks. And so what I mean by surface segmenting would be, I would like to see in the future, under the super source, let's go in there, under surfaces, just like you can build a group. So you could go add group and call this new group. And you can add, where did my new group go? Here it is. Within here, you can add sort of pages to it. Actually, sorry, I've got to go into, it's offline here at the moment. Stream Deck Studio here. So I have a, this is also a bit hard to read because I got so many things in here. Where's my Stream Deck Studio? Here it is, this group. Oh, I wish visually this was easy to read. Okay, this is offline, but you'll get the idea, which is that you can add multiple surfaces to a group. So I would like to, within a Stream Deck, I'm just gonna click on a XL because I don't have the other ones plugged in. In here, be able to segment this so that you could sort of set the parameters of, how big you want this surface to be, and where in the offset you want it to be, and and then you're like new segment. And so what I would have is, and come back to this close up, this probably makes more sense here. I would like to be able to, on a Stream Deck Studio, have these first top row be these 8 buttons, 2x8, and then this one be that. And then I could basically lay out my XL onto a Stream Deck Studio. So that would make life much more easy to sort of take existing profile, because I think people have done a ton of work in building profiles over a long period of time, and being able to bring that into newer equipment layouts without having to reconfigure everything, or like worst case scenario would be duplicating and managing 2 sets of a layout. So that's one thing. The other one that I'd like to do is a surface offset, which is to be able to reposition the surface on the fly. So this is an action that would be, here under a button. You could come in, create a button, and you would have something like offset. I don't have this in there, but you would type in an offset action, and that would be, I'm just going to delete that, effectively changing let's go to a surface I can control, Stream Deck, this sort of offset vertical and horizontal in the grid. Like at the moment it's 0. Sorry, I'm not even showing you. Let's go over here. So the, let me jump back to there. So I was saying in the buttons, I want to be able to like create a button and have like an offset action, which would offset the XY of a surface within this. So in the surfaces, that action would be changing under settings, this horizontal and vertical offset. So by default, it's on the 0, 0 button, but I want an action to be able to say, you know, send it to 2.8 or something like that. So that, and the reason for this is, if I come back to my big old profile here, remember we had, so this is a Stream Deck XL. This kind of, let me see if I can, okay, you can see the layout of it here. So previously, to get multiple pages, or even like in the Aux, let's just go over here. Not there, let's go back this way. So I've got a ATEM 4ME profile, and so there's 40 inputs, which don't all fit on one page. And so I need each Stream Deck XL to be able to access this page. So at the moment, I've got 2 pages. So input 1 and input 2 is, so input 2 page is inputs 20 to 40, and the other, you know, program 3 and 4. What would be nice is to be able to have all of these buttons that are program input related on the one page. And so it'd be maybe here and maybe out here in the canvas. And let me just zoom out using my button that we've just discovered today. So I'd be putting the other page here. And that means that when I have a Stream Deck Studio, that would automatically line up. But if I have a Stream Deck XL, I could use an offset, basically kind of like a page within a page yeah, that's how it is. It's a page within a page. So I could have an action rather than saying, go to the next page over here, page 18, I could say, go to 08 would be this one here. And that's why I'd want to be able to offset it, so that I can have the one installation. So you're doing one set of programming from a sort of software backend point of view, and then different surface types are able to reference that, whether it's a Stream Deck XL or whether it's something like a Stream Deck Studio. So that would make life a lot easier. And the last one is, I would love to be able to have actions that could address multiple connections, because there's often a lot of equipment that is duplicated. Like you might have like 8 hyperdecks or 30 cameras, and at the moment you have to create 8 pages or 30 pages to be able to address all of those pages. And it's like you can almost do it with variables. Let me see if I get an example here under page 2, maybe. I'll zoom in a bit so we can see what is happening. So in more recent versions of Companion, you can now actually click down on the same connection type. So you can see under connections, I've actually got three ATEMs connected, and I've given them the names 1, 2, and 3. And under this button, I have this action to set the program input from variables, and it's ATEM 1 here, but I could very easily switch it over to 2. And so it's sort of like being able to build a page where you can just, so this is my switching page, and I'm going to do switching, and then I want a variable to be able to, you know, ATEM 1, 2, or 3. So the variable would be 1, 2, or 3. And if I've selected ATEM 2, then this whole page will be addressing number 2. So that would be something I would like to see in the future, just to make it more efficient, because when you have larger profiles and lots of equipment, it's a lot of managing things in a very manual way. And on that note, I would say the last thing I want to see is GUI efficiencies. So this is just basic things like cut, copy, and paste, being able to do multiple, like draw marquee, select multiple buttons and cut and copy and paste them to another page, or even just be able to click and drag a button around, because at the moment you can't click and drag a button, whereas you can with Elgato's, I think you can with Elgato's software, you can sort of move that around. And if you are copying across a page, so if I copy this button here, and I go over here and paste it here, and then I go back to this page, and you know, so it's if you're doing 30 buttons, it's a lot of back and forth, and it's very laborious, particularly when you're, if you're jumping over to, log page, and I'm like, got buttons here, and then I'm bringing them back over to page 3, and like, so it's a lot of key pressings, which is not ideal. All right, let me take a look on the chat, see who we have here, and good to see you guys. IT never gets old says, nice to be back here live with you from the frozen tundra of Shoreview, Minnesota, USA. Hope you are staying warm. It's pretty cold in New York at the moment. I mean, the frozen tundra sounds like a level up, so I think you probably win that one. But we've got southern New Jersey near Philadelphia for Let's Celebrate TV. Lars is in the Netherlands, and David's pretty nearby in Times Square. G'day from just a couple of blocks away. I'm over on near Madison Square Park here. Michael in Germany, and Chris B from Auckland in New Zealand. Okay, so, and IT never gets old. Thanks for your question. In version 4, are the modules easier to download rather than having to chase them down in GitHub? Yeah, I mean, I never really did. I did a couple of like manual installs, I guess, but most of what I was dealing with was the betas. I will jump across again to here and go to modules. So yeah, like I was showing you here, you can choose the version you want, or you can actually like trash it and get rid of that one. And you can hit refresh. And so I guess this is like the latest of what's available. So you can do a lot more here internally rather than having to go over to GitHub to check things. And also what I quite like is that you got 574 modules that are ignored. So it just, I don't know if this brings, performance or efficiency to it, but to me it sounds like previously with Companion, you would have just downloaded everything and there's a ton of modules that you're never going to use. And so this way is like just saying the modules, the ones that you are using, what are they? Let's bring them in, manage them individually within Companion. So sort of Companion's got your sort of core umbrella there, and then within that are the different assets. So I think it would probably make it more stable there. So if you wanted to click over here, you can see what's available. So I could remove what's installed and just look at what's available, or deprecated here. So available, and this is where like I don't have a wing, but I want to get a wing eventually, Behringer wing, and I could click on that one, and I guess I could just add that in. And so now I have the wing, which was released a long time ago and needs updating in there. And so that's the way in which you could bring in Ubiquity Unify. I haven't actually explored that one, but maybe I'll play with that one too, because I have that stuff. And then also import module package and import offline module bundle, refresh modules list, that kind of thing is, yeah, there's a lot more like import, export kind of you have with configurations, you now have that with modules. So I could imagine you could do a lot more custom things going on there. IT never gets old. Let me come back to here. Also says, wow, it looks to me like the if actions will keep me from having to define as many triggers. Right now, you sometimes have to do many triggers to cover many conditions. Yeah, there's some things in Companion that I feel like I've built way too many and spent way too much time building very manual things, which is trying to get a lot of functionality into a smaller user space for a user, because you do actually like run out of space very quickly on 32 buttons. And so just trying to like think how to get all of this in there. So like, for example, in my, not that one, in my profile, the upstream key is something where I have a ton of multiples, because, a 4ME, if you come in here, has 4 upstream keys for each of the 4 layers. So suddenly you've got 16 keys that you need to address individually. And if I go to my USK up here. Let me just jump over here. So you can see here, I've been able to, rather than having 16 pages for different keys, I've been able to get that onto 4 pages by putting a lot of that functionality into buttons. So you have this sort of conditional testing mode on the first step, which is saying, you know, are we on upstream key 1, 2, 3, or 4? In which case, go to steps 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on the subsequent steps is the actual actions that take place. So on the user end, you don't notice that. You just, you know, select your, you know, ME2, and you would select key 2, and you would start making changes. Let me jump back over to here. You know, you select your ME mix effect layer, so mix effect layer 1, and then you could select which key you want to work on, and then you could start moving things around. So I think I'm on key 1, for example. I could select that, and I could change where I'm putting this, like that. Let me go in middle. There we go. Oh, I did too long. It'd be good if this could step through. No, it's a delete. Nah. Oh, well, I'm up here now. Too much. So there's, you know, and then if you were on key 2, then that wouldn't actually work because I'm on doing key 2. So on a user front, it looks simple, but on the back end, it's got a lot of more things going on. What else do we have? Let me just read through what we have here. Chris says, I need variable access in a particular action in the ProPresenter module. My options are to ask the module maintainer or fork and fix it myself. I haven't looked into this too much, but I would imagine that there's more room for that to be able to do that, and also like easier management of it. So over here, yes, you could import offline module bundle. I'm not sure if you can export it. You might need to go to like GitHub and fork it from there, but then you could import offline module bundle. Yeah, it's just going to be like bring that in. And so I think it's going to be an easy way of managing that internally, which will be nice if you're trying to sort of do more custom things itself, in itself. Over here, David says, I'm with you here, mate. Beta testing the button app and the Stream Deck Studio, but find the interface difficult to grasp. What's the secret to multiple pages? I don't have it loaded up here, so I can't sort of go into that. I've played around a little bit in buttons, but yes, some of that, I think it's more, from the little I've played with it, it seems like it's more a surface, and then you've got sort of pop-outs, or I think you can sort of move where the surface, like offset it to a different part of that one canvas. I don't think there's multiple pages from what I've seen. There might be, but I haven't sort of dived in deep enough. But I do feel you on if you're used to Companion and you look at buttons, it looks pretty, but there's still a lot of things in there, and just trying to figure out it takes time, and you know, we're all time poor. Jeremy, good morning from Sydney, Australia. Hope it was awesome catching up with Ryan. It was really good. You know, we've chatted virtually over the years, and we've done some collabs with some of the other live stream guys, and I almost saw him 2 years ago when we were in Australia, and then I think, you know, some of our children got sick or something, so we couldn't actually connect. But he has 2 kids who are like the same ages as my kids, or kid to be. I have a daughter due in about 2 months, so I've got a second child on the way. So I appreciated talking to him as a dad as well, and in the live streaming business, and just you know, what it's like managing family and work. So it was really good catch up. And then, like I said, there was like torrential rain, and just like the streets were just like rivers of water, and my shoes were drenched. Luckily they dried up before the flight home, so I could wear thongs or like flip-flops around Australia, but I had 3 days of like wet shoes. So let me see what else we got here. Okay, so Skaabu says, companion side quest for anyone that feels the calling, the ability to make a page for displaying info available in Companion, like a canvas one can fill, for example, running in QLab, remaining time that you can have in a kiosk mode on a screen. You know what, that's a great question, because I do things like that. So sort of heads up display. I think it's really important when you're live streaming, you need feedback, and you do kind of get that on the Stream Deck to some degree. Like I'm actually developing a new way of running the show here. So I got my sort of cue buttons here. So I've got a technical cue, which is stepping through camera positions and stuff. And then I'm also with Google Sheets building out like a show content queue and just trying to get these to sort of interact. But so we see we're up to the goodbye section of the show. And so I was playing around with different versions. I've got, let's cut to desk cam over here. So you probably can't see here, but there's a half height monitor that I was experimenting with putting up above my teleprompter, because the exposure's maybe improving a little bit there. Actually, I can go to Visca number 3. There we go. There we go. So this monitor. So I was trying to set that up as a heads-up display. What's quirky about it is if you plug HDMI in there, it's actually squished. You need to run it off USB-C to a computer to actually get the proper aspect ratio of the half 16:9 screen. That's quite a nice one. And I was putting a companion page in there. So basically under my, you would have seen this before. I was looking at clock. So I've got a sort of a clock page, which is just a bunch of feedbacks. So you can see the you know, YouTube viewers here, 30 people, that's awesome. And feedback here. And so this 2x7, was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's X'd out here. So this 2x7 was what was going up on the teleprompter there. It was a bit of like setting it up each week, and I'm really looking for something that I can just switch on and not have to think about, you know, laying it out and stuff. Like I just want it to be able to switch off and switch on and no changes. So, but this was like a clock, and this was a countdown to 2 o'clock. And what else? So that was one way of doing it, which is basically an emulator. So under surfaces, you would create an emulator here, just add emulator. And I had this one called clock, and then you could open that, which I've now reconfigured, obviously. Where are we? Clock settings, which should be current page. Let's go to clock. And here we go. So this would be the clock, and I would basically, you know, full screen that and put that in a monitor, and you can see I got space above and below, so I just wanted to have a smaller monitor. So that's one way of doing a sort of heads-up display with Companion, but it would be nice to, you know, when you have a lot of text like here, to be able to group a bunch of buttons so the text kind of goes across it. That's something I've been thinking through. The other way of a heads-up display that I've been doing is on Google Sheets. I don't know if you can see, it's actually looking a bit weird at the moment, but so I pull in all my show data through Google Sheets. So this is the show that we just did today, which is basically in my notes app while I'm sitting at home. I'm like putting together a show, usually in 3 sections, and there's often a bunch of stuff in between. And so I've got, you know, my pre-show start, part 1, and then part 1 has like a bunch of stuff in here. And so each of these lines becomes a new segment within a chapter of the show, and then I can pull that data in. But I've got triggers within Companion so that whatever section I'm up to, so at the moment I'm on goodbye, which is, row 30. Under this next tab, I've formatted this to pull in that text. And so again, that's a sort of, so if I go back and forth with my, I've got a delay on this actually. It's gonna wait 5 seconds, there we go. So it is instant, but since today I was putting it together and I was starting to put on a 5-second delay. So let me go back to goodbye, there we go. So I'm gonna wait 5 seconds. Dun, dun. So that's the text and I wait 5 seconds. The reason I've put on a 5-second delay today is I actually have a button, let me go to here. So now when I'm running my show, I'm pressing this button here, and every time I click that, it advances through that list of things, so it pulls up the next content. But this goodbye also appears on screen. So in my teleprompter, that will actually trigger the output of aux2, I think it is, goes into my teleprompter. And I'm taking the computer input number 6, which is my, what do you call it? MacBook, not my MacBook, my Mac Mini has just that page that we had loaded. So where is it? This page. So this page is going into my ATEM, and then when I hit my advanced button here, my teleprompter goes full screen for 5 seconds with what I'm talking about, and then it will change the variable onto the next section, and also my teleprompter will then revert back to the program feed so I can make sure I'm showing you the right content and not talking to you about the screen, like the computer screen, but just have myself on camera, which I think you saw me do that twice today, was forget to cut to what I'm talking about. And so the reason I do that for 10 seconds as opposed to a minute is because I'm like, oh wait, they're not seeing what I'm meant to be showing them. So that's how I've set up my teleprompter, and because I have an actual teleprompter wheel over here. Let's go back to this air. Ooh, we're very close here. Let me see if I can get that. So I can actually, control the teleprompter that way. But I find for the shows I'm doing here, if I was just delivering a piece of text, I could probably, below camera, have my hand controlling text. But for me, it's much better having basically a bunch of cue cards. So it's like, because I've got a whole bunch of content that I want to talk about, and I want to stay on track, and I don't want to forget where I was up to. And if I finish talking about a particular topic, then I don't have to think about oh, what was I thinking? What was next? I just glance at the heads-up display, and I can see that my next section is goodbye. So I start talking about that, and then I have a button that I press, and it puts the text up there, and it's more of a card, like a static card, rather than something that's scrolling. So that's the other way that I've been running that. You can also see on my on my cam button over here. On my iPad, you could also just make a single button here, which was the same as this one. So this goodbye button here, I've basically got that button and put it onto a good old surface, and that means I can, on my Visca 3, let's go back to a mid shot. I think that's good. You can see my iPad would sit here, and then I can sort of keep track of what the segment is, and so that's kind of like another heads-up display, and also it's because it's it's a giant button that I could push to advance the show. And what else do I have? Oh, the other one that I should show you is Screen Deck, which I had an whole episode on this, and so make sure you check that out. But under here, so on GitHub, you can go to Joseph Adams, and there's Screen Deck, which I'm not running, and I don't think that'll be a problem. I'll boot this up, I'll allow this, and wait for this to pop up. I think it's set up. Settings, here we go. Yeah, so this is, it looks black because there's another button layer down there in the black. So again, this is where you could so you're looking at my monitor display here with my face in the wrong spot, but you could change this to, under here, under settings, you could change this, oh man, I can't see. All right, instead of 32, you could change that to, 4 by 1 per row, and then save settings. Okay, and now I've just got a little heads-up display in Companion, which again, I gotta move down here because of my face. So that's something, if you're live streaming and you have a computer monitor, then you could have that sort of heads-up display on the side, which just gives you, particular feedback of like, is my ATEM recording, or is my mic unmuted, or that kind of thing, so you don't sort of lose track of that. Let's go back to my iPad and see if there's any more questions before we wrap up here, because we are top of the hour. The questions here. Oh, more questions. Where are we? Suggestions for a future show. Thank you for the congratulations, guys. Appreciate that. Maybe I actually haven't announced it. It's funny. I feel like the first baby was a bit more of like, put it up on Instagram, and the second baby is like, it's like, oh, you're pregnant. I forget. Yeah. I think it gets old. Congratulations on your second on the way. Many say you're not a true parent until you have more than one. I hope that's a good thing and not a sign of mayhem to come. Although I feel like the bigger identity shift has got to be going from 0 to 1, because you suddenly become this parent, and you have to, like, your time is no longer your own in the way that it used to be. So I'm sort of used to not sleeping now. To let you know, be heard. He's replying to Chris Burns. If you are able to fork and fix, then you could submit requests to update the module while you're waiting for it to be merged, and then run in developer mode. So yeah, there's a lot more options there. And lastly, skaabu, that's nice. Congrats on number 2. Liked your idea of using the emulator for this, but I think this would work better as a non-button layout, more like an adjustable grid system, so that you can set up sizes. Just hoping someone builds on this idea. They sort of did, what was it? It was like Dashboard 2000 or something, wasn't it? H2R Dashboard 2000, I think. Dashmaster. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete this, quit. So it's been like a year since I've looked at this, but I know over at H2R, they've got Dashmaster 2K, which I'm pretty sure has a free version if you want to just like jump in and start putting things together. I'll do this later, but that you can see from the layout here has sort of different modules that you could lay out, and would be much better than, because you always want to get like a clean full screen. Like you probably want to fill a 16:9 space to, and then adjust it how you want, because sometimes you want like a long bit of text and you need it in a certain size, because you want it to be easily readable from a certain distance, so you need that customization. And then other times you just want like a little clock in the corner, or you want a little flashing light like I've got with Companion Buddy up the top there to let you know what's happening. So definitely check out Dashmaster 2K if you haven't. Last time I played with it, I couldn't get Companion in a way, like I think you could get a web page or something, but you really want to be pulling the actual data and then just putting specific bits of data in a dashboard. So maybe check out that Dashmaster 2K, says Eric. And what do we got here? Let You Know Be Heard says, it's a big identity shift, and then you go back to being an empty nester. Oh, that's so sad already, but it is funny. My daughter just turned 2 over the weekend, and she's accelerated so quickly with words, and she's just a whole new child in the last couple of months. And yeah, it's kind of sad feeling like we're in these beautiful days, but they're also moving ahead, and you can't hold on to it, but you just got to like observe it and be present, I guess. All right, well, on that beautiful note, let's wrap up there. Thank you for watching. It was really great to have a bunch of people here today to be able to talk about some of the new things that are happening in Companion. I do have a website, davidjoshuaford.com, if you want to go there. There's profiles that are pre-built for controlling ATEMs and PTZ cameras and all that kind of stuff to make your life a bit easier. Also a free one just to download and get started and sort of try that out. But until next week, take care, and I'll see you then.